Okay, so today, um, mathematics. What is math, and why? What? I guess the question is why is maths or mathematics? Um, I think in the UK they say maths with an S. Why is mathematics a important? Why is it? What is mathematics? What makes for a good mathematician? And why, what is it, I guess? What is essential about it? And when I think of math, I believe that there's many ways you can approach it, but obviously it doesn't just test you on your ability to memorize things. Some people take it as a memorization thing. Some people, they do kind of mental math, and I guess that's some kind of, there are different things happening in that when you do that. Or some people think that math is about, and it can be, I guess different people can approach math in different ways. A lot of it is also about creativity, about being able to sort of, it's like a Lego, where you have different formulas and you can, do things. You have a set of rules and you can, combine things and put things together, kind of like a Lego, and, Lego pieces, they're little, plastic pieces that you can put in different ways. And so math gives you the rules, and then it allows you to create things using these tools, which are the formulas and the rules that you learn. Now with math, why is, mathematics, it really, in terms of intelligence, it's really hard because, of course, math is really like a language if you think about it. It is, the rules, everything is, when you think of arithmetic and, addition, subtraction, multiplying, dividing, fractions, all of that all kind of leads to algebra, and then once you learn the algebra, you could either stop there because the algebra is enough to carry you through. You can actually do quite a bit with algebra. Algebra is enough to do big things, right? Like the tax code, the finances, a lot of the business. You can do just with algebra. You can do quite a bit. And then, of course, beyond that, you have the other, like calculus and, whatever else, you start getting into, where like passwords and sort of more advanced computer, things that are more relevant to computer. And that uses higher levels of math, right? So, but the thing is, when it comes to, you would be surprised at, obviously mathematics is required in many fields of studies, like, engineering, right? You have to know the math and you have to understand it. And obviously, you require that. Like, that's not, they're fundamental to to building things. And so, but the thing I wanted to talk about, when you deal with math, one of the other things that I was thinking is that it's also about, it also allows you to, there are so many things that are a part of the implementation or the learning of mathematics, or I should say, a lot of the skills that are used in mathematics are a lot of the things, and I'm talking about not math itself, but the process of mathematics and how people approach math. And what I mean by that is, when you are the process of mathematics, it's not just, you in your mind, there is a kind of grit that goes on inside of you. Grit is like this idea that in your mind, it's a lot like it's about being able to think about something and solve it, but it's all mental. It's all in the mind. And if I can describe it, to be honest with you, it hurts kind of, which is kind of weird because you really can't feel your brain from what I've understood. I've asked medical people and I've said, hey, can you feel your brain? And they tell me that it's not possible to feel your brain. So I don't know what the sensation is, but it's like when you solve a math problem or when you think something, your mind feels tired. There's like this tiredness that happens. There is like, and it could be a kind of biochemical process. Maybe maybe it's something to do with, energy. Of course, it consumes energy, right? Your mind, when you think, it consumes energy, and it seems like when you try to solve a problem, particularly a math problem. I mean, you can do this if you do any math problem, to be honest. Anything that requires following the rules and doing something, you're going to feel this tiredness. And so, and that's what I'm talking about. And so the idea is when you have, the process of doing math requires, it requires using your mind without using anything physical, right? You're not doing something physical, but yet it feels like physical activity, right? But in the mind. And I don't know how else to describe it. So clearly you have to be eating, make sure that in order to do math, you really do have to eat, right? You have to consume, because it is a chemical and biochemical and physiological process, okay? Just as physical activity is, which you wouldn't think it is, right? But it is. And so that just goes to show that our brain is really a part of our body too. It's a part of our body. And so it's not just something that kind of just happens. It's not just something that pops up. It's something that requires a physical reaction within you, in your mind. So as all thought processes do. But I think part of the issue is what math really tries to, what it does to you, and it allows you to practice doing that. And really in life, whenever you work on a project, mathematics, in school, you learn math, but you really don't learn. I think you spend so much time learning the rules that people rarely apply the mathematics. And then, what's so weird is that even in our most recent attempts at school to apply the mathematics, even then I feel like we fail at actually applying it, because what ends up happening is they say, oh yeah, you need to apply the mathematics. So I guess that means you have to, instead of having a generic math problem, now it's like, okay, Timmy has 10 iPads, and the iPads need, whatever it is. And the issue is, right, like you start adding things into it, and then they think that's what it means to apply the mathematics, right? To put context or put names or, help people understand how we use math. And to me, that's not really the application. I mean, yes, that is the literal meaning of application, but you are showing them how it is applied, but you're not allowing people to play with it, to actually to do the applying process. So what that means is that math is a tool, right? And so once you understand the fundamentals of algebra, right, you are able to create something new and build upon it, and then use your creativity and go back and forth and go through the process of discovery, the process of, and that's really what I think is what mathematics is, and how you're gonna use it in life. So in life, you are going to have to explore things. You're going to create things, particularly if let's say you're going into the business world, right? Where you're trying to solve problems. Some problems, can be solved in pretty straightforward ways, right? Doesn't really require anything sort of out of this world. But I truly do believe that the greatest inventions and processes are things that involve having a complex system. And that complexity, that's really what mathematics is about. It's about putting complex things that are moving, many things happening at the same time, and doing it all at once and creating sort of a machine with it. And to be able to do that in a social or in whether it's in whatever context it is, whether it's you could do this in music, you could do this, but really, not really music, but maybe more, you could do this with any invention or where you can add complexity, a layer of complexity to things that would not be possible without sort of having these more advanced sort of ways of thinking about things. So I'll just say, for example, when you are, algebra, for example, is what allows you to do that. Because algebra is where you take the arithmetic and what's interesting is that the arithmetic is just some of the basic, ways in which we organize numbers and which is, a representation of life, right? Because life is numbers. Everything can be numerized. Yeah, everything can be numerized. Everything can be put into, can be described in terms of numbers, and then you can manipulate and play with those numbers. And the thing is, what algebra does, and with the higher maths, which use algebra too, but really what it does is that it allows you to take the numbers, and it's not a number anymore. It can be any number. It can be any value. And now you don't have to create a system. It's kind of like it allows you, algebra and formulas allow you to record a process, and you don't have to think about it anymore. And all you have to do is plug in whatever other value or whatever. To be honest, it doesn't even have to be a value. It could be anything. You can plug things in without having to do it every single time. That's really what algebra is, right? That's what a formula is. You put in whatever values happen to fit into that, criterion, and then it will allow you to, and you can do things, right, that are, you can do things that you wouldn't be able to do, that you can do something that would take you a long time to do, but you can do it without thinking about it. Now or you can do it you can automate it, so to speak. And now if you were just doing it by hand, obviously you don't have to memorize the formula, right? But now what happens is you can start adding layers to it. So a formula is not usually just by itself. Usually, if you want to think of a car as a formula, for example, right? You start the car, the car starts a reaction, right? You turn the key, the key turns, on something else. I don't know how cars work, to be honest, the exact process, but there's one thing starts a chemical reaction, the other, starts another gauge, and then the other, and then it cranks the motor, and then, whatever the process is, all of a sudden there's 10, 20, 50 things, small things that happen, and it all happened from that one turn of the key, right? And so in the same way, you can think of life processes in the same way that life processes, you can think of it in the same way, because anything that is a process is usually made up of small components that work together. And so that's really what algebra allows, is for anything to replace anything. You can build lots of formulas and then put them all together. So really, if you think about it, it's one big formula that represents a machine. And that's basically what a computer program is, right? Any computer program, if you've ever taken, if you've tried to understand how a program, or what they call an app nowadays, if you take an app, right, it's one big, what they call the code, right? It's one big, a lot of lines made up of individual instructions, right? And it's constantly changing. And so, but you can think of life like that too. So imagine if you're building a business, let's say, whatever business you're building, if you try to create a process and put it all together, it would be just like a formula. And so you would have, and that's how you can apply math into your life. Because when you have that mathematical mind, you're trying to get creative. And to me, if you want to know how to get closer to mathematics, if you want to think like a mathematician, let's say, okay, an Isaac Newton, right, or whatever it is, if you think about what I'm saying is, you want to be able to create things. So when you're applying mathematics, you want to be able to put things together and go through that process of, okay, let me gather up, the process of experimentation, the process of understanding how something works, observation. You need to observe what you're looking at. What are you trying to do? Figure out how things work, and then tweaking. And what you'll find is that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And, let's say you were building a computer program. That's a very simple way to look at it. But really, it could be a business. It could be anything where you need to put lots of things together. But let's just pretend that you're trying to do something that's never been done before. And that's kind of the example I want to give today, which is, imagine if it's very easy to, start like a hot dog company or something, or a restaurant, right? Where it's known, like, okay, you need a dishwasher, you need this, you need, a cook, you need utensils, it's very easy to think about certain things in our society. But what if you were to create something that hasn't been done? And that's similar to what a mathematical mind will do, because you are thinking about something that doesn't exist, right? It's easy. I feel like in our world today, we've gotten used to doing things the way that it's always been done. Every once in a while, you meet some creative people who change things. I would say like Jeff Bezos would be an example. So he completely revolutionized the way they do delivery. They don't do, it completely different. And that's why I think Amazon has succeeded as it has. But the issue is, you can do that too. And sometimes, but if only people understood exactly what it meant to apply mathematics. What exactly does it mean to apply mathematics? And that's why I think it's something that, do I believe that humans can get good at it? Because sometimes people say, I'm good at math, or I'm not really good at math, right? And I would argue that there are people who might be good at math, but they might never have applied math. They might never have even tried to apply it. And so it's weird, because in a way, someone who knows, everything about, if somebody who, it's one thing to be able to read a textbook and, see examples and then just follow, just memorize the rules and then just follow through with it. That's one thing to be able to be good at that. You could go all the way you could be a graduate student at math and do all that and still not ever have applied math. Isn't that weird? Like, you've learned all the rules, but you haven't practiced creating your own formulas, right? Actually, no. Calculus and algebra requires that you get creative with how you solve it. But I mean in the sense that there's something beyond, I guess, is what I'm talking about today. And so what I want is, I was thinking about how, if you are inventing something new, if you're creating something new, that's really the true application of math. And for people to realize that that's the power that math gives you. And anyone who's good at math should be able to go beyond and create something on their own. But you have to kind of, you have to accept, or I should say, you have to, I guess, come to the realization of that power that we have. And so just because you're good at math, but you also want to be able to create things and use the same principle similar to math, because at the end of the day, math is just something that was, it's a way that humans, or mathematicians throughout history have thought about things, and how, and they've come up with, they've invented, or I should say, something that describes, there's so many mathematicians who were inventors. That's literally what they were, inventors of the organization of numbers. It's truly amazing. But I think when it comes to, creating something new, which I truly believe in, it can still happen in our society. And of course, I look forward to seeing new inventions. It's going to require sort of, using those, applying things in new ways. And that same mind, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can also apply this in fields that you wouldn't think would be mathematical. So for example, in a business, right? Because in a business, sometimes, imagine if you could run a restaurant in a different way than it's run now, for example. Just to be creative, right? What if somebody wanted to do things differently? How would you organize it? How would you put things together? How would you, how would you experiment? It's a mental process. It's not a physical. I mean, there is a physical component to it, actually. When you're a scientist, you're obviously in a restaurant, it would be a physical thing. But when you're dealing with the actual thinking of something, I'm talking about the process of something, that is a mental aspect. And I believe that's kind of the essence of mathematics, is that when you're thinking about and organizing things in ways that you wouldn't think, or organizing things in ways that are mental, that are not always, you're planning how you're going to organize. If you were to organize let's say a business, the structure of how you're going to do things, or when you're going to do things, you could draw a graph, you can make a chart, and when you have that chart made, it allows you to see your business in a different way than you otherwise would. And the ability to create those things, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. That's kind of the true application of kind of the spirit of mathematics, so imagine if you were to create a chart, and you were to, if you could rearrange something and do things in a way that's different than what's normally done, you could come up with advanced ways of thinking. You can organize in formulas, and you can represent as a formula just how things work, or whatever ideas you have. So let's say, for example, you were to create an engine, for example. You can make a chart that explains how engines work. Or you could make a chart that explains, you make your own chart for how you think things should be done. And, okay, we're looking at the element, Euclid's Elements. Okay, so I'm just scrolling through here. Well, what I mean to say is, you can make your own chart you can sort of create your own, and that's really how algebra can be used, is that because you can replace it with anything, you can put things together in ways that you can organize things. What math allows you to do, and what algebra allows you to do, is to organize things. And you will use the symbols to connect them in ways that make sense to you. Okay, now traditionally we use it for, numbers and the relationships between numbers. But imagine if you could apply this kind of thinking to a business setting, or any idea that you have, actually, or invention, or something that is physical. You can actually, another thing too that's great about math is that you can, there's so much you could do. You could also simulate something. So you could represent something that is physical in a digital or an ideological way, or in this case, a mental way, so that you can think about something without having to build it, right? Or without having to see it, or without having to have it. And what I'm saying is the mathematical mind allows you to play with these numbers, or in this case, with your ideas, and you can rearrange them. And the act of writing it down and organizing it, and the act of doing that allows you to rearrange things and also understand and analyze what it is that you're doing. So it allows you to turn something mental into something physical, so to speak. That's really what math does. It allows you, so all of a sudden you're thinking about something, and now it's turned into something that you can look at, and you can try to understand, like, well, is this the best way to do it? Is there any other way that I could do it? So, and that's kind of the magic. That's really what I wanted to talk about, is kind of the spirit of mathematics, and what it really means to be a mathematician, and how you can use this. And people often say, like, well, I'm not good at math. And sometimes, there may be a reason why somebody may not be able to be creative, or may not be able to think about things. I think there's a variety of reasons why somebody might not be good at math. It could just be sometimes that they just never understood math, but they are capable of organizing their minds and organizing ideas, organizing mental ideas into something physical, or in this case, something that can be written down. That is kind of, I believe, the spirit of mathematics. Okay, the idea that, like, what does math really mean? It means writing down things that are in your mind and putting it into words, into symbols that can be understood, and that you could analyze and play with. And that's ultimately what mathematics is. And so now all of a sudden it's not about numbers at all. Everything can be math. Any idea that can have relationships and that you can organize it in distinct ways can be a form of math. All of a sudden, it's not, and you can create your own formulas with it, and you can also, it can enhance the way that you understand things about life if you're able to see it in a chart format, or in any way that, that allows you to sort of analyze, means to be able to think about something, to be able to understand why something happens, possibly. And then sometimes it might not even be like, it might just be kind of an infinite number of ways that you could do something. But oftentimes there are, and it's true that you can think about life in different ways, but for the sake of what you're doing, usually it's going to be sort of, it's like you're creating your own world, basically. And you set the rules for what you want the world to be. And the only thing you need is for everything to kind of work together. Just like in a video game where there's, a rule, they set up the rules and then they make it consistent, right? And everything kind of, it works in that world, so to speak. And in that case, that's kind of how you should think of your how you approach whatever idea you have, which is that whatever idea you have, you'll be able to make your own sort of, you'll be able to make your own rules, so to speak, and then your own, and as long as it's a self-contained world, I mean, this is your invention, it's your world, you can make it how you feel, and then over time, see, the process of creation, the process of invention is that usually you'll come up with one version, and then afterwards you'll come up with a better version, and then a better version, and then a better version. And so this process, that's kind of what math is, and that's kind of the process of creation, the process of invention, and anybody who is a creator engages in that. And so in a way, everyone has that ability, in my opinion. Everyone can be good at that. So, and that's really what it's about. It's about, and it's crazy how in life, I do believe that our mind can adapt, just as our body, our physical muscles can adapt. I think that our mental, our brain synapses or whatever, I don't know what, the exact process, but like the way that our neurons sort of organize themselves, I believe that it's possible for almost everyone to be good at this aspect that I'm talking about, of being able to do things and being able to organize something and then hone in and then create your own quote unquote formulas, and then being able to build your own sort of framework for whatever it is that you're trying to invent. It could be any creation of any kind. And so take comfort in knowing that you have this ability in you. I really do believe that most people, just as you can learn how to speak, I mean, that's a complex process, in my opinion. If you can speak in complete sentences, you're capable of doing quite a bit. But sometimes people just don't realize how that works and how the process of, and the only advice that I can give you is to keep trying, and finding a way to make it better. And then try making charts, organizing your thoughts and trying to put them together into complex, and then seeing, analyze what you're doing, and then see what can I learn? How can I do this? And then use that skill to build yourself and to create a product, whatever it is that you're inventing. Maybe it's a business idea, maybe it's whatever it is. And then make it into something that is sort of bigger than, because the reason why, you might say to yourself, well, why don't you just, why not just think about it, right? Why write it down? Why make charts? And the reason why make formulas? Why go to that level? And the reason why is because there's only so much that the mind can hold. In theory, the reason why, most people in their minds cannot memorize, an entire formula and be able to keep everything in their head. So by writing it down, it allows us to do something that normally our mind, you just can't, I don't know how to explain it. You can't visualize something and just go through an entire process, a long, complicated process. Imagine, and a lot of the biggest formulas, when you're thinking about something complex as a business or whatever, your mind, our mind, at least my mind, I don't know, maybe some minds could do it, but you don't have to, is what I'm saying. You can just do so much more if you wrote it down, organize your thoughts, and start playing around with it. And that's what would, and that way you can do more. Because actually, you probably could teach yourself to do something in your mind, actually. And in fact, before, when humans were illiterate, I actually do believe that people had amazing memories. They had to, because they couldn't write things down. But in today's world, because we can write things down, that doesn't mean that we should be lazier it means that it means we need to go above and beyond. It means we can do, instead of doing one invention, we could do 10 inventions, right? Like imagine how much output, someone like Leonardo da Vinci did. And this was before he had computers, right? Before we had computers. And now, like, obviously they had computers back then in the sense that, not literally, but in the sense that they were doing the same thing that computers do today, which is mathematical formulas. But today, computers can do that for us. And so imagine, in theory, today, we could have amazing inventors that can just do so much more. And so I want to encourage you all to do something similar to that, to create and to really feel like, I really do believe that almost all of us can have amazing abilities, even if you don't think of yourself as a mathematician, you don't think of yourself as having a mathematical mind. You truly do, actually. You can have the spirit of mathematics within you if you go through that process of thinking about something, organizing it, and then writing it down, and then trying to find and keep going at it over and over until you get it better each time. And then eventually you're going to find a formula. And I guess the last thing that I will say, really, when you think about it, everyone's lifestyle is sort of like a formula, right? Everyone, if you observe how they wake up, how they shower, how they, all of your day-to-day activities, your ritual, we all have sort of a formula for how we live our lives. And that's the magic of humanity, actually, is that each one of us has a different formula for, okay, this is how I wake up, this is what I do, this is what I grab, this is what I eat, this is my philosophy on food, this is my philosophy on what works for me with what kind of shoes I like to wear, how I dress, why I do that. And every one of us has a different way of living things, and that's a formula. That's a formula that you've created for yourself. And anybody who's been, doing something for a long time, you have to respect them and realize, hey, you know what? There's a reason why this person is the way they are. When you meet someone who is retired, right? Have you ever met someone who's retired and been working for decades? That person might be a little quirky. That person might be a little, you might think, oh man, like, I don't like the way they do some things, or, you might not understand. They might not look, or I should say, what I'm trying to say is, they might not look like you might think they're a simpleton, right? Like, you might think that someone is like, oh, they're retired. Oh, that's not too bad. But, when you realize, I mean, if you get a job and you realize what goes into it, and you realize, hey, this is hard. Not anybody can just maintain a job for decades, usually multiple jobs, but you have to respect anybody who has figured out a system that works for them and that they have been successful in, a formula for life. Anybody who is retired and who has spent a lot of time doing something, working in this case, years working and been able to reach retirement, that's an example of someone who has a formula for life. And so it's interesting because when you ask someone who is retired, they'll be able to tell you, look, this is what keeps me consistent. This is my philosophy in life. This is what has helped me accomplish what I did, which it is truly an accomplishment. Somebody who has succeeded. They have succeeded in life. They know. And sometimes you see someone that looks tired and they look, like they look like they don't, they look like a simpleton, like I said before, but actually, it's really the result of a lot of thinking, premeditating, effort, and really finding a formula in life. And so so today, you should try discovering this gift of finding a formula in life and something that works for you. So I want to thank you all for joining me here. And what do you all think? Would you, what do you think of having a mathematical approach to your everyday life? And how would you apply? What do you think the application of mathematics means? I'm curious to know. So you can leave a comment and thank you all. And you can subscribe for more content. All right, goodbye.